Welcome to Money Matters TV. My name is James Chan. I'm your host in this episode, and we are having a very wonderful session topic because you will find out in a minute or so. Before I do that, let me introduce my co-host, my friend John Mason, who is CEO of New Finance LLC. Hi, John.
Hello, James. How are you doing today?
Doing fine,
Great,
given what
great.
we have right now. The pandemic, the whole thing, it's can't complain.
Good, good.
Yeah. Now, John, I know that you are a wealth of information when it comes to this name, Kathy Wood, and the ARC investment management, and how they actually have an impact on people's investment strategies. Would you care to talk about this? Just tell the viewers
Sure,
what
I'd
you
be
think.
glad to, James. Kathy Wood is getting an awful lot of press these days, along with her firm, ARC Investment Management. They have done very, very well in the last few years and the like, and they're really pointing up a really situation that exists now within our investment community, which is really, really important, I think, for people that are trying to develop an investment strategy. Uh, Ms. Wood and ARC Investment Management deal primarily in what you would call evolving or emerging technologies and the like. I mean, she deals in companies that work in DNA synergy. She works in
Yeah.
robotics. She works in many artificial intelligence
Mm.
and Bitcoin and things like that. And it really points up a major difference in terms of what we're going through right now and what we have to pay attention to as investors.
So is it somehow also impacting, in the news, GM saying, "Oh, we're going to make electric cars," and does it have is there a relationship?
Yes, there is very much so because uh, uh, GM, AT&T, and T, and some companies like that, I would call them legacy companies.
Mm.
They have been in business for a long time. They have their business models and strategies that have been worked out and the like, but they're having a very, very difficult time in this environment because times are a changing and they're not making the adjustments that are necessary, I believe, in order to be able to be competitive in this particular type of environment. Why is that? Well, basically, if the markets are being dominated now, for instance, Tesla is dominating a lot of the discussion going on in the automobile market, and electric vehicles and so forth are coming on. This is just changing the whole focus of what these organizations are having to face, and we're finding out that companies have to leave their legacies more or less in order to be able to move into a world where they can compete with these new firms that are focused solely on the new technologies. Very, very dynamic thing that's going on. Tesla, for instance, Ms. Wood considers that Tesla, you have to look at what they're doing in the terms of artificial intelligence. Okay, it's car maker, no, artificial intelligence, robotics, energy storage. Oh well, okay, but they're dealing in cars, aren't they? No, she contends that they're dealing in these things which are basically drawing on these new technologies. What General Motors is showing us is that, okay, we've got to change. Mary Barra, who is the CEO of General Motors, has done, I think, a real terrific job in terms of trying to move General Motors on into this particular world. For instance, the other day, she just announced that in 2035, General Motors won't be producing any cars that are not electric. Wow, that is really a huge change. But she has felt, and I believe that this is true, that she's got to change the focus of General Motors to dwell on that one aspect of things if she's going to be competitive with Tesla and many of these other new companies that are just focused on new products. And so she's having to now phase out of legacy components of General Motors and is focusing now on making it a company that only produces electric vehicles. JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon is doing similar things at JP Morgan Chase and Company. They are just last week or two, they just announced, for instance, that they are going to start up a new digital consumer bank in the United Kingdom. This is going to be all new model. Okay. They're basically saying the old model can't translate specifically into this new environment. And so this bank that we're creating is all digital and a new model. This is the only way we can go forward. And the United Kingdom has laws and competition now that is very open and mobile, that allows new tech companies, fintech companies, and others to come into this market based on this new technology. And JP Morgan Chase feels that they have to be in this market with this new technology if they are develop the model that they're going to go forward with.
Does this mean that the more traditional kind of hardcore manufacturing is obsolete? It's a dinosaur? Is that what you are saying? Or can Cathy Wood also help industries that are not exactly the digital, the high tech, the big data, the little data? You know my drift. You get my drift.
Well, Ms. Wood talks about disintermediation in these areas, in these industries and the like, James. And for instance, General Electric is a good example, I think, of a company that has they've had the last year and a half or so. Larry Culp has been their CEO. He is supposedly a turnaround artist, but he's been unable to define a business model that he can present to the public, to potential shareholders. And basically, he is kind of festering in this old company where he cannot do exactly what you're saying is, and what Mary Barra is trying to do and Jamie Dimon is trying to do. He's lagging in this, in the sense that he can't get General Electric out of the past. Same thing is happening at AT&T. And here again, you got a management team that is legacy. They have been around for a long time. They have focused on trying to get into media and have sorely failed, in my view, in terms of getting in there. And their telecommunications still presents over half of their profits.
Well,
but
John,
they now are,
John,
yes.
Yeah, I need to stop you for a while because I think it is much better for you to answer a question from the viewer right now.
Okay.
And the question is from William Founds of Philadelphia, which is, how will an increase in interest rates affect equities? I'm sure that you can give a piece or two of advice.
Well, the environment we're moving into, again, it sounds like a simple question, but it's a very, very difficult environment we're moving into. I mean, for one, Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, is basically saying that the Fed wants to keep interest rates low for an extended period of time in order to try and get the inflation up above its target level of growth. So, how long will interest rates stay low before they start to increase? But the second part of that is that Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve System has tossed in so much money into the financial markets that in terms of equity rising, that's what I look at. If the Fed has all this money and is keeping pumping money into the financial markets, equities are going to go up. And that's been the case over the last period of economic expansion, and I expect that to continue now. The Fed has a view that it wants to see that equities don't fall, and so they're willing to err on the side of too much ease, and erring on the side of too much ease means that the markets, the financial markets, are awash in money, and this is why we're hitting new historical highs in the stock market almost week after week, that the Fed has just flooded the financial markets with money.
Very good, very good. Now, here is how you send in your questions to Money Matters TV. Welcome to Money Matters TV. Again, my name is James Chan with Asia Marketing and Management. I'd like to introduce our guest in this episode, who is Kenneth Milner. Ken, he goes by Ken. Ken is the special counsel at Crowe Harris. Hi, Ken.
It's great to be here, James. How are you doing today?
Very, very good. How are you doing there, where you are?
I'm dry. at least we're safe and dry here.
I do not enjoy shoveling snow front and back of the house. Well, you are an expert in the franchise business. I know that you have spent decades on helping people with anything to becoming a franchisor or franchisee or just doing whatever. So why don't you, first of all, I think the first question I would like to ask you is, what is a franchise?
Well, that's a great question. People have to understand that the name or the word franchise is really not a noun. Franchised is an adjective. Franchising is a way of doing business. It is a way of doing something that allows a distribution of a product or a service, which is something that is, even though a couple of 100 years old now, fairly new. And a franchise or a franchised business generally has three parts. It's something in which there must be a reliance upon a name or a mark, a special trade name or mark of goodwill. There has to be an investment of at least $500 in all sorts of ways, either before or after a contract is signed. And the third part is that there has to be significant control or assistance provided by a franchisor, who is the owner or the licensor of the trade name or mark, to the franchisee, who is the person who's relying on that mark and on the way of doing business that the franchisor requires.
Very good, very good. Oh, by the way, before I ask another question, I want John also to participate as actively as I do in asking you questions. So I don't let me just talk. I don't want to talk all the time. So John, would you like to ask Ken the next question?
Excuse me, I just got something and came
That's
over
all
my
right.
screen.
Yeah, Ken, let me just grab the ball and keep it running, which is, name some of the advantages and disadvantages of being, let's say, a franchisee.
Okay. You know, just because you make a great pizza doesn't mean you know how to run a pizza business.
Okay.
Just because you've developed a product doesn't mean that you know how to market it. a few of the great things about becoming a franchisee. The first thing is that you're going to be working with something that has a recognizable name. You know, if you're driving down I-95 with your kids in the back seat, and you're wondering as you pull off because the kids are hungry, and you have a McDonald's on your left and you have a Joe's Burgers on your right, even though Joe's Burgers might be the best burgers in the world, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to pull into that McDonald's. And the reason is you know exactly what they are going to have. It is a recognizable name. It stands for a recognizable product and service and system. And that's very important to people, that they want to have some sort of reliance. So having that trade name is the first big thing that a person going into business will want. They won't have to build a brand. It's already there. The second advantage is that you are in business for yourself, but not necessarily by yourself. You know, McDonald's or any franchisor has already developed a product, a system, a marketing plan. They have a way of doing things. If you make a pizza and you decide you're going to open a pizza shop, where do you put the oven? Where do you put the pepperoni? Should you have takeout? Should you have delivery? Should you have eat-in service? What do you do? Where do you order things? It's already been done for you with franchising. There's already a system that is developed. And that's the most important thing. So even though you own that business and you will be entitled to the profits, the most important thing is that you're not alone. You have somebody who has been there, who will be able to provide to you operational support, marketing support, and things like that. So those are two very big advantages.
Okay.
There are others, but those are two big ones.
Very good. Now, John, are you there? Can you?
Yes, I am.
Why don't you go?
Okay, sorry about that. I had something pop up on my screen I couldn't see. And Ken, the area you're working in sounds like a very exciting area to me. And I just wondered how these pandemic times and the economic recession and so forth, how has that affected the flow of your business and everything like that? Because in some areas, even though a lot of people are hurting, there's a lot going on and a lot happening.
When you say the area, obviously, as an attorney, attorneys in franchising and in a lot of businesses are busier than ever. But in terms of franchising itself, there are a lot of franchised industries that have been hurt by things that can happen, like a pandemic or other sorts of worldwide crises or events. For example, if you don't have, let's say you have to shift all of your operations to delivery services and takeout services. What do you do if you are a restaurant that was usually having people sit inside? How do you do this? Now you have a takeout service. Now you have to sit there and you have to pay a Grubhub or one of those delivery services, and that's going to eat into your bottom line as a franchisee. Your profit margin is much, much lower. And this is true for a lot of franchises, not just food. Some franchises have done better. For example, convenience stores. And let's not forget that gasoline products are franchises as well. So they've done very well. On the other hand, if you are an automobile dealer or you were a real estate franchise like a Remax or a Century 21, I guess they're going to have to become Century 22 or whatever. The fact is that all of a sudden you're unable to have walkthroughs. You can't have somebody go through an entire house. So these are all kinds of things that have to be taken into consideration.
Right. So Ken, it seems to be the right moment to ask, what are the disadvantages then? You really, let's
That's true.
talk about that for a minute.
there are plenty of disadvantages to becoming a franchisee. That we have all of those good things, and there were more, such as a marketing plan and things like that. There are several disadvantages. The first is that it is upfront, probably a little more expensive. You have to pay an initial fee just for the use, the license of the name, and that system upon which your whole product or service is based. So there's an upfront fee. Sometimes it can be as low with janitorial services or as $15,000, if you want to consider that low. Other times it can be $45,000 or $50,000 just to get into it. Then there's a continuing fee. You pay for a continuing royalty fee, as they're sometimes called. There's advertising fees. When you put money into advertising, you're not just advertising for your particular place, your particular restaurant or station, or even your business. What you're doing is some of that advertising money is going toward the national brand. It's going toward national advertising, etc. So you don't always have control of the money that you're putting into this business. A third problem is that you are restricted in terms of what you want to offer to the public. If you want to offer, if you're at a McDonald's, but you think it would be great because you have a terrific person who supplies bagels and cream cheese, well, McDonald's is not going to let you serve bagels and cream cheese for breakfast. You have to understand that. So there are some restrictions. The other thing I always tell people about franchising as a franchisee is that franchising is like marriage. It's easy to get into. It is hell to exit.
Is it true? Is it really that true?
Oh, sure.
You're not
Because
kidding. This is no joke.
A franchisor is investing in you. A franchisor is sitting there and teaching you all of its tricks, all of its services, all of its way of doing business. It's teaching you all of those things. The last thing that franchisor wants you to do is to leave and take all those tricks with you and use them as a competitor. So all franchise agreements have very strong non-competition and restrictive covenants and things of that nature. Pennsylvania, for example, still allows restrictions on competition and restrictions on employment and things like that. Other states, perhaps, like Georgia and California, not so much. But Pennsylvania sure does. And so it's a lot harder once you leave a franchise to be able to take what you've just learned for the last decade and now turn it into something that's a competitor.
John, you have a question? Because I have one that I will serve.
Yeah, I've got one I really wanted interest in Ken's answer is that so much in so many of the places I'm working in, they're going through changes that will not be reversed as we go along. In terms of the franchise area that you're working in, do you see some of these changes taking place that that the industry just won't go back to where it was once this pandemic and recession are over?
That's a great question. I love questions like that, John. Okay, next question.
Ready. We have 4 minutes.
I am not.
Only 4 minutes.
It's a great question, John. And the reason that I'm making a little joke is that I'm not really sure. You know, franchising is so based on maintaining a system, a product, a recognizable brand, something upon which people rely over and over and over, that it's hard for me to see at this point that there's going to be a huge change in terms of how franchising works.
Thank you, Ken.
I can't resist asking you this trick question. It's really not a trick question. It's a legitimate question, which is about, can a personality be turned into a franchise business? For instance, Bette Midler, the comedian, the performer, can Bette Midler franchise herself and spawn other comedians, male or female, or in between?
It generally does not take place like that. The best way for a celebrity, someone with a recognizable name, etc., to be able to work with it is to become the spokesperson or a spokesperson for that company. There are a few who have lent their names. For example, the fast food one that everybody would know would be Roy Rogers.
Oh yeah,
Well, everybody my age would know.
I know
Roy Rogers. Or back then it was Geno's, which was a chicken and hamburger place, which really came from a great football player, Gino Marchetti, who was very famous back in the 50s and 60s. So there are times that you can franchise off of your name, but generally not what that person does, because usually the person who has become a celebrity has something special, something about the person himself or herself that is different, from all other. You know, a comedian is not going to be funny just because a person has a way of doing business. There's something about the total package of that person. So it's rare that you can take a person and package it. What you can do is use what that person has, and the person can make a tremendous amount of money. I remember that Jeff Gordon, the great race car driver, was a spokesperson for Cotman Transmissions. And it made a natural thing that here was a person who was known for racing and everything else. And to have that person handle some advertising, etc., sure, why not? You see that even now, you see race car drivers today on television, in products, etc. Sure.
Well, Ken, we have maybe just about 1 minute. John, would you like to ask the last question, and then we have to wind up the show?
The kind of caught me off right there, James.
My fine. Let me take over because I have an easy way.
Go ahead.
A franchising an idea, which is, Ken, you only have 45 seconds. What would you like to tell the viewers in 45 seconds? I'm counting. Go.
The most important thing when deciding when to purchase a franchise is to review carefully that very large document that's provided to you. It's called an FDD, and that FDD has all of the information that you need to know to decide whether or not to get into this franchise business. Read it, and at the back is a list of all the previous and current franchisees. Call as many as you can and ask them one question.
Okay, very
good. You had
good.
to do it all over again.
Very good.
You still do it.
Very good. Thank you. We're out of time. Thank you for watching Money Matters TV. Our next guest will be Joshua Irons, who is CEO of River Avenue Digital. Thank you very much. See you soon.